Title: Why Inmates Complain About Prison Food, and Why Some Don't. The Meal That Started a Riot. If you think prison food is bad, wait till you taste the truth. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and keep watching, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about life behind bars. It started on a blistering July afternoon inside Jackson State Penitentiary, a name whispered like a curse among inmates across the Midwest. The kitchen was a furnace of noise and steam, trays clattering, metal doors slamming, voices echoing over the smell of bleach and spoiled grease. Inmate Darius King stood at the end of the meal line, staring down at his tray, a scoop of what looked like gray mashed potatoes, 2 slices of stale bread, and a puddle of something they called meat sauce. The sauce was cold. The potatoes smelled faintly metallic. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. But that day, something snapped. Darius had once been a name on the streets of Chicago, a respected small-time boss with ambition bigger than his territory. But inside prison, power worked differently. You didn't rule with fear. You ruled with control, especially over what people ate. He watched as a new inmate, a skinny kid named Luis, gagged on the food and threw up on his tray. Guards laughed. One kicked over the mess, muttering, "Next time, eat what you're given." Darius's hands clenched. "Next time," he said under his breath. "There won't be a next time." That night, while most of the prison slept, Darius met with 3 trusted men in the laundry room, the only place with machines loud enough to hide a conversation. There was Clyde, a lifer who'd seen more riots than birthdays. Reese, a quiet former Army cook who knew the food supply better than anyone. And Tommy, the youngest, serving time for a crime he swore he didn't commit. "The kitchen's the key," Darius said. "They control us through it. We control the kitchen, we control them." Clyde smirked. "You want to start a riot over cold meat?" Darius shook his head. "Not a riot. A revelation." Over the next few weeks, the group began collecting evidence: food logs, supplier invoices, discarded cans labeled with unfamiliar brands. Reese discovered something shocking. The meat being served wasn't even meant for human consumption. It was Grade D surplus, a euphemism for livestock waste repurposed under contract to the state. They needed proof. One night, Reese snuck a small can from the kitchen. Its label read nutrient slurry, animal feed use only. Inside was the same gray paste served on their trays. That was the moment Darius knew. If the truth got out, it could shake the entire prison system. But not everyone wanted it out. The next morning, Warden Gregory Holt summoned Darius to his office. The warden was a tall man with the calm of a storm waiting to break. His desk gleamed, spotless, except for a steaming mug of coffee and a single-file folder. "Mr. King," Holt said, without looking up, "I hear you've been asking questions about our food service." Darius kept his expression neutral. "Just wondering what's in it." The warden smiled, eyes cold. "You eat what you're given, son. You start thinking too much about what's inside, you'll lose your appetite for freedom." As Darius turned to leave, Holt added quietly, "And freedom's the only thing you've got left to lose." That night, the tension in the prison was electric. Word spread through whispers. Something big was coming. Inmates pushed their trays away at dinner, refusing to eat. Guards shouted, alarms blared, and within minutes, the cafeteria exploded into chaos. Tables overturned. Food flew. A tray hit a guard's helmet. The riot had begun. Darius watched from the corner, his plan unfolding faster than he expected. Smoke filled the air. The sound of sirens drowned out the shouting. He motioned to Reese, who slipped through the kitchen door with the stolen can in hand. Their goal wasn't destruction, it was exposure. Reese sprinted toward the loading bay, where trucks from the supplier waited. But before he reached the exit, a gunshot echoed through the chaos. Darius froze. Reese fell, the can rolling from his hand across the concrete, stopping at Darius's feet. Its label was smeared with blood, but still visible. The guards moved in fast. Darius was thrown to the floor, his face pressed against the cold tile. Over the noise, he heard the warden's voice through the intercom. "Order will be restored, and anyone who thinks they can challenge this institution will starve trying." The riot ended as quickly as it began. Dozens of inmates injured, one dead. Back in his cell that night, Darius stared at the ceiling, bruised and silent. Reese's death wasn't just a loss, it was proof. Proof that something bigger was hiding beneath the surface. And when he opened the slot on his door, he found a folded note waiting. No name, just one sentence. They killed him because he found the shipment list. Darius's jaw tightened. Whoever left that note wasn't an inmate. It was someone on the inside. He turned the paper over. There was an address scribbled in tiny letters, a P.O. box in Denver. He didn't know it yet, but that address would lead him far beyond Jackson State and straight into the heart of the prison food empire. The taste of power. If you thought the riot was the end, it was just the appetizer. Hit subscribe and keep watching, because this is where the real corruption starts cooking. 3 weeks after the riot, Jackson State Penitentiary was under lockdown. Inmates were confined to their cells 23 hours a day. The cafeteria stood silent, trays stacked, lights off, kitchen sealed. Officially, it was for safety review. Unofficially, everyone knew it was punishment. Darius King hadn't spoken to anyone since that night. His body healed, but his mind stayed sharp, turning over every detail, every threat, every word the warden said. Reese had died for a secret, one that still smelled like cold grease and blood. Then, one morning, Darius was called to the visitor's room. He wasn't expecting anyone. His family had stopped coming long ago, and his crew on the outside had scattered. When he stepped into the room, there she was, a woman in a dark gray suit, her expression unreadable. She introduced herself as Ava Monroe, an investigative journalist for a small online outlet. She slid a folded note across the table. "This came to my newsroom 2 days ago," she said. Darius unfolded the paper. It was a photocopy of the same note he'd found in his cell. They killed him because he found the shipment list. But this copy had something new scrawled at the bottom in faint ink. "The list is real. Check Denver. Codename, Slate." Ava leaned in. "Mr. King, I've been covering prison contracts for years. Food, uniforms, construction, all tied to the same network of shell companies. If what you're saying is true, it could expose millions in fraud." Darius looked up sharply. "You think I'm trying to help you?" "I think," Ava said, lowering her voice, "you want people to know what they're feeding you." He didn't answer. But when she left, she slipped him a thin envelope through the guard's blind spot. Inside was a small photograph, a warehouse in Colorado, marked with a faded sign, Slate Logistics. That night, Darius made contact with Clyde and Tommy, whispered through the vent shafts, the old prison telephone system that no guard could ever fully silence. "Slate's the key," Darius said. "Reese found something that traced back to them." Clyde grunted. "And what, we're supposed to waltz out of here and knock on their door?" "Not we," Darius replied. "Someone else will." He had one ally left, a guard named Mason, who'd once taken a payoff from Darius years ago and never forgot the favor. Now, he smuggled messages in and out for a price. Darius wrote a letter addressed to Ava Monroe. "Slate Logistics. Check the shipments dated June 14th. Look for any marked special procurement. If you find what I think you will, you'll understand everything." A week passed. Then 2. No word. Until one night, Mason slipped Darius a manila envelope. Inside were photos, grainy, black and white, taken from a distance. Forklifts moving crates labeled Department of Corrections, nutrient supplement, animal use only. One photo showed workers in masks transferring the crates into unmarked trucks. Another showed a man Darius recognized instantly, Warden Gregory Holt, standing beside a man in a suit, shaking hands. A typed note from Ava read, "You were right. Slate is a front company. The food you're served is bought through Holt's brother-in-law. Millions in profit. I'm going public, but I need proof from inside. Proof from inside." The words echoed in Darius's head. He already had it, the original can from the riot, hidden inside the base of his cell toilet. The only thing left that could tie everything together. But before he could move, a new warden arrived, Warden Clyde Avery, replacing Holt pending investigation. The inmates whispered that Holt had been reassigned, but no one believed it. Avery was colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. The first thing Avery did was reinstate the cafeteria. But the food, somehow, was worse. More gray paste. More spoiled smell. It was like they wanted to make a point. Darius couldn't sleep. He knew Ava was out there risking everything. He had to get the can to her. But Mason had gone missing, and the guards were watching every move he made. Then one morning, his cell door opened early. Too early. Avery himself stood there, flanked by 2 guards. "Mr. King," he said calmly, "time for your transfer. Orders from the Department of Corrections." "Transfer to where?" Darius asked. Avery's smile didn't reach his eyes. "ADX Florence." The words hit like a punch. Florence. The Supermax. No contact, no visitors, no sunlight. The place where men disappeared. Within hours, Darius was shackled, loaded into a van, and driven away under armed escort. The sky outside the tiny window bled from blue to black as miles rolled by. He didn't know if Ava ever got his final message. But deep in the back of the van, he noticed something strange. The guard sitting across from him had no name tag. No insignia. Just cold eyes staring from behind a mask. When the van stopped at a fuel station, the masked guard leaned forward and slipped a folded note into Darius's cuffed hands. It read, "Slate knows. Ava's missing. You were right about Holt. Don't eat the food at Florence." Darius looked up, but the guard was gone. The door slammed shut. The van rolled forward into the darkness. He realized something then. This wasn't a transfer. It was a disappearance. And whatever Slate Logistics was hiding, they were willing to bury everyone who got too close. The last meal. If you've been watching this far, you already know, nothing in prison is what it seems. Hit subscribe, because this story doesn't end with a sentence. It ends with a reckoning. The highway stretched endlessly through the Colorado desert, the transport van slicing through fog and silence. Darius King had lost count of the hours. Shackled hands. Cold steel. The faint hum of the engine. And that note. Don't eat the food at Florence. When the van finally stopped, dawn was breaking. A pale light washing over a fortress of concrete and razor wire. ADX Florence. America's most secure prison. No noise. No movement. Just the wind cutting through steel fences. It looked less like a correctional facility and more like a burial ground for the forgotten. They moved Darius through layers of gates, each one clanging shut behind him with a finality that felt like a heartbeat stopping. No human faces, only mirrored visors. He was processed, stripped, searched, and handed a jumpsuit. Prisoner number 94388. New life, same nightmare. Inside his solitary cell, there was no sound except the buzz of the fluorescent lights. Meals came through a metal slot, gray, soupy, and lifeless. But when he lifted his tray on the first night, his stomach turned cold. The can of beans sitting there bore a familiar mark, Slate Logistics. They'd followed him here. 2 weeks passed. The routine was suffocating. No contact, no recreation, no sunlight. But Darius started noticing things. Subtle things. Guards rotated too frequently. Cameras blinked erratically at 3 a.m. And sometimes, faint whispers came through the ventilation ducts. Prisoners in neighboring cells speaking in code. One night, he heard it clearly, a voice he recognized. "King, they got Ava." He froze. "Who is this?" Silence. Then it's Mason. The guard who vanished. Mason's voice was hoarse, rushed, like he was speaking through pain. "She went to Denver. Found Slate's facility. They grabbed her. Word is, she recorded everything before they took her. If that footage gets out, Holt and his people are finished." Darius pressed his ear closer to the vent. "Where is it?" "In the air system," Mason whispered. "They're using it to move something between the cells. Food, drugs, maybe messages. Look for a silver hatch behind your toilet. There's a note inside." Then a loud crash. Footsteps. A muffled yell. Silence. Darius's heart pounded. He tore open the metal panel Mason mentioned, prying it loose with his bare hands. Inside, folded and smudged, was a single sheet of paper. On it, scribbled in Ava's handwriting. They poisoned the food supply to silence inmates who knew. The contracts trace to 3 states. I uploaded everything. Denver public server. Timestamp 4:27 a.m. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But they'll know soon. Darius sat frozen, his throat dry. He understood now. Slate wasn't just about money. It was control. If the story got out, the entire system would collapse. Hours later, guards stormed his cell. They said it was random inspection, but Darius knew better. They tore everything apart. The note was still hidden under his mattress. He watched the guards, silent, waiting for a mistake. Then one of them, the same masked man from the van, leaned close and whispered so quietly it barely existed. Midnight. North Wall. Be ready. That night, alarms blared across the facility. Darius sat on his bunk, waiting. Then his cell door clicked. Unlocked. He moved cautiously through the corridor. Empty. Lights flickering. At the north wall, the masked man stood near a service hatch. "You've got 5 minutes," he said. "Your story's already out. But they'll come for you next." "What about Ava?" Darius demanded. The guard hesitated. "She didn't make it. But her video did. It's everywhere." Darius didn't breathe. Could it be true? The truth out in the open. The fake contracts, the poisoned food, the corruption reaching from prison kitchens to government offices. The masked man handed him a flash drive. "Backup files. You might need it." Then a gunshot echoed down the hall. Red lights flared. "Go," the guard yelled. Darius crawled through the hatch, cold air slashing his face as he dropped into a maintenance tunnel. He could hear boots above, shouting alarms. He ran through darkness, following faint blue exit lights. The tunnel ended at a metal grate. Beyond it, a barren stretch of Colorado desert. He slammed it open, climbed out, and fell into the dirt. Freedom. For the first time in years, the night air felt alive. He stumbled toward the hills, sirens fading behind him. The flash drive pressed tight in his palm. 3 days later, a video surfaced online. Ava Monroe's voice narrating over hidden camera footage from Slate Logistics. Crates labeled animal use only. Invoices bearing Warden Holt's signature. Footage of contaminated meat being packed into prison-bound trucks. Public outrage exploded. Investigations opened. Warden Holt was arrested in Miami, found hiding under a false name. Multiple state officials resigned. But Darius King was never found. Some say he vanished in the desert. Others claim he lived under a new name, working with journalists who exposed the prison system from the shadows. Yet every year, on the anniversary of the riot, a letter arrives at a small newsroom in Denver. No return address. No name. Just a line scrawled in black ink. Still hungry for the truth. If you thought this story ended behind bars, you've only tasted the beginning. Hit subscribe, because the next story, it's even darker.